All Africans have to pray for Ibrahim Traore. So Ibrahim Traore will be traveling to Moscow on the 9th of May, a few days from today. You know that in Moscow they are going to have the largest military parade. This is a military parade no country has ever seen. And they are going to celebrate their victory day. And you know, Russia had called Ukraine and told Ukraine, please, for 3 days, let us have a ceasefire so that the Russians can celebrate their victory day, the day they won in the Second World War. And one of the people who has been invited is Ibrahim Traore, our captain from Burkina Faso. So he will be traveling to Moscow. But now there is a threat because Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, has refused the ceasefire. And in fact, Zelensky has said he cannot guarantee for the safety of the people who are going to attend the ceremony.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whatever part of the world that you're watching me live from. This is Making Africa Great. My name is Isaac Wabomba, and today I have come with another episode just to ensure that you are updated when it comes to Africa matters. Yes. So let's dive direct into it. So guys, you know what? President Ibrahim Traore is planning to travel to Moscow on the 9th of May. It's just a few days from today. And what is he going to do there? He's going to attend the Russian celebration, the Russian military celebration, you know. So he's going there to attend the military. There is a very big military parade that is going to take place in Moscow. And it is Russia that are celebrating, you know, they are marking on this day. They usually celebrate it because it is the day they won the Second World War. It is the second, it is the date they usually celebrate since they won the Second World War. And you know what? The president, one of the president that has been invited to attend this celebration is one and the only Captain Ibrahim Traore. Yeah, him being one of the best friends to President Putin from Russia. Of course, he has invited him. And you know what? President Ibrahim Traore has confirmed that he will be attending this ceremony. So let's watch this clip here.
All Africans have to pray for Ibrahim Traore. So Ibrahim Traore will be traveling to Moscow on the 9th of May, a few days from today. You know that in Moscow they are going to have the largest military parade. This is a military parade no country has ever seen. And they are going to celebrate their victory day. And you know, Russia had called Ukraine and told Ukraine, please, for 3 days, let us have a ceasefire so that the Russians can celebrate their victory day, the day they won in the Second World War.
Yes, that is just a sniper as we continue, and I'll keep on adding you more and more of the clip to ensure that we flow together. So many countries will be present in this particular ceremony. Many countries will be represented from different parts of the world. And you know now, it is a worrying part. It's a worrying thing when it comes to security matters for President Ibrahim Traore. Remember, the US and France have been partnering to ensure that they do away with this guy because he's so stubborn, according to their economy things. Economy matters, and you know what? So it is a matter that is now worrying African supporters, the black who are supporting President Ibrahim. You know, President Zelensky, that is the president from Ukraine. You know what? Russia had called him and it requested him to do what? To seize the fire, just only for this day, to ensure that they celebrate the day they won the Second World War. Russia has requested Zelensky to seize this fire. It has requested the Ukraine to seize this fire, just for this celebration. But you know what? Zelensky has refused. But in fact, the response that he gave out, he said he can't promise their security. He can't promise when it comes to their security matters. So this is putting a lot of question into our heads. This is putting a lot of questions into the black fraternity across the world. And you know what? Most of them, they're like, why is it a must now for President Traore to go and attend this ceremony? If Zelensky is trying to say, or rather, if this is the response from Zelensky. Now, another question would be, if he doesn't attend this ceremony, how will how will President, or rather, what will be the take of President Putin? Now, it's a challenging moment. It's a challenging moment for President Ibrahim Traore. But at the end of the day, it is, you know what, we just have to put Captain Ibrahim Traore into prayers. We just have to pray for him, because whatever is going to take place on that particular day, on the 9th of May, we do not know how it's gonna end. We do not know how it's gonna end for sure. So I don't know what is your advice to him, but according to me, I would be like, he could just watch this thing online, and just talk to President Putin, and you telling me, what. But also, President Putin could tell him, or rather could respond and tell him, you know what, I know I have more skilled security personnel. You come. So there's so many questions there, but let me continue to explain as you watch this video. As I have already told you, President Zelensky has told the response from him. He says he can promise, or rather he can't guarantee the security for this particular event. And now there will be a representation from different parts of the world. So don't you think the US, in partnership with France, could use this chance to do away with President Ibrahim Traore? Is it a strategy? Yeah? Is it a strategy of doing away with his life? Yeah? Like, we are trying to think from different perspective of this entire matter. Yeah, him alone, he knows how his life is in danger, but at the same time, he has that bold. This guy, I don't know, the President Traore, I don't know, this guy is just, I don't know if he has blood from a human being, or he has blood from a lion. I don't know. Yeah, because the courage in this person, the boldness in this person is just of another level. He already knows the security issues. He already knows how his life is in danger, but he still claims that he's gonna attend this particular ceremony. So you even wonder, yeah, if it were me, I would have talked to to President Putin and told him, you know what, guy, you're my G, but now, because of this and that, please allow me to but because they're friends, so who knows. But the most important thing is, let us put President Ibrahim Traore into our prayers, because whatever may happen there, I believe it's gonna cost the world. Based on the research that has been done recently, it shows that President Traore is one of the most loved president in the world. Yes. And now if he's the one of the most loved president in the world, if something happens to him, so what happens? Yeah. It's gonna be messy. It's gonna be, I don't know. Yeah. So, some of the questions that are running in the minds of people, they're asking themselves. Most of the Black African, they're asking themselves, could this be, a planned thing? Could it be a planned moment for the US and France to use this particular chance, to tamper with the life of this guy? Yeah, yeah, because they're well informed. Also, they know what is going to take place, and anything they can decide also to do something. They can decide to counter the event. Eh? Because President Putin has always been a tough-headed guy when it comes to bowing to the West. He doesn't want anything to do with the West, and he has been on the forefront to ensure that he supports the Black people to come up, to grow, to stabilize, But on the other side, the West, that is the US, they have always been requesting him to partner with them, but he doesn't want anything to do with them. So these are the enemies. These are the enemies of the West who have planned a big event. So if anything happens there, it means there will be a lot of bloodshed. There will be a lot of problem. Each country will be represented there. So you can imagine if anything happens, how many countries are going to be affected and how many countries are going to fight back. Wow. It's not as simple matter as we may think. It is not a joking matter as anything else, So I don't know what would be your advice to President Ibrahim Traore. I don't know what would be your suggestion to the people of Burkina Faso. I do not know what are your reaction, but I want to just get them in the comment section and just have a look and understand what do you think about this bold move. Should President Traore go to attend this ceremony, or should he stop? Should he call Putin and excuse himself, or should he go there in a camouflaged attire just to appear like anybody else? Should he? What are your thoughts? Let me get them in the comment section, and also remember to subscribe to this channel as we grow together. My name is Isaac Obomba. Let's get into this video as we get the reaction from you.
The world watched with bated breath as the anniversary of Victory in Europe Day approached. Russian President Vladimir Putin, seeking to control the narrative of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, proposed a 72-hour ceasefire. This gesture, seemingly aimed at honoring the shared history of the Soviet Union and its allies in World War II, was met with skepticism and outright rejection. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, unconvinced of Putin's sincerity, dismissed the proposal. He saw it as a ploy, a tactical maneuver designed to provide respite for Russian forces entrenched in Ukrainian territory. Zelensky's refusal to accept the ceasefire was not merely a rejection of Putin's offer. It was a bold declaration of Ukraine's determination to continue its resistance. It signaled that Ukraine would not be swayed by symbolic gestures, particularly those offered by an adversary actively engaged in military aggression against its sovereignty. The world took note of Zelensky's resolute stance, a stance that underscored the depth of the rupture between the two former Soviet republics. The international community, deeply invested in finding a peaceful resolution to the conflict, found itself at a crossroads. Putin's ceasefire proposal, while viewed with suspicion by many, had presented a glimmer of hope for a pause in the hostilities. Zelensky's rejection of the offer, while understandable given the circumstances, dashed those hopes and raised fears of a protracted and even more brutal conflict. The world braced itself for the continuation of the war, the end seemingly nowhere in sight. The ramifications of Zelensky's decision were felt far beyond the borders of Ukraine. The conflict had already destabilized the region, sending shockwaves through global energy markets and triggering a humanitarian crisis of immense proportions. The failure to reach even a temporary ceasefire signaled a deepening of the crisis, with potentially devastating consequences for all involved. As the date for Victory Day celebrations in Moscow approached, Zelensky made another move that reverberated on the international stage. He issued a stark warning to world leaders, particularly those considering attending the commemorative events in the Russian capital. His message was clear: attending the celebrations would be tantamount to endorsing Putin's actions in Ukraine. Zelensky's warning was not a veiled threat. It was a direct challenge to the international community. He questioned the judgment of any leader who would stand alongside Putin while Russian forces continued their assault on Ukrainian soil. The message was particularly pointed at leaders of African nations, some of whom had maintained a neutral stance on the conflict, or even expressed a degree of sympathy for Russia's position. The warning sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles, forcing leaders around the world to reassess their planned attendance at the Moscow celebrations. Some, heeding Zelensky's warning, quietly withdrew from the event, citing scheduling conflicts or other diplomatic engagements. Others, undeterred or unwilling to snub Putin, maintained their plans to attend, their presence in Moscow seen as a tacit acknowledgement of Russia's narrative of the conflict. Zelensky's warning highlighted the complex web of alliances and rivalries that had come to define the international response to the war in Ukraine. It exposed the fault lines in the global order as nations grappled with the implications of taking sides in a conflict that had no easy answers. Zelensky's warning to world leaders, particularly his pointed message to African nations, elicited a mixed response across the African continent. Some African leaders, already wary of what they perceived as Western hypocrisy and its condemnation of Russia's actions, saw Zelensky's warning as an attempt to dictate their foreign policy decisions. They bristled at the suggestion that they were being pressured to take sides in a conflict that, while devastating, was primarily a European affair. Others expressed concern over the escalating rhetoric and the potential for the conflict to spill over into a wider global confrontation. They urged all parties to exercise restraint and to prioritize dialogue and diplomacy over military escalation. The African Union, in a carefully worded statement, called for a peaceful resolution to the conflict, emphasizing the need to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all nations. The varied reactions to Zelensky's warning underscored the diversity of perspectives within Africa regarding the conflict in Ukraine. While some African nations shared the West's condemnation of Russia's actions, others were more nuanced in their stance, recognizing the historical ties between Russia and many African countries, particularly those that had gained independence during the Cold War era. The conflict in Ukraine presented a diplomatic dilemma for many African nations. They were torn between their desire to maintain good relations with both the West and Russia, while also upholding the principles of non-interference and respect for international law. The war in Ukraine had inadvertently thrust the spotlight onto Ukraine's own involvement in conflicts beyond its borders. Of particular concern were Ukraine's alleged ties to armed groups operating in the Sahel region of Africa. These allegations, vehemently denied by Kyiv, had nonetheless strained relations between Ukraine and several African nations, most notably Mali and Niger. Mali, grappling with a complex insurgency in its northern regions, accused Ukraine of providing support to separatist rebels who had launched deadly attacks against Malian soldiers and Russian mercenaries operating in the country. These accusations led to a diplomatic rupture between Bamako and Kyiv, with Mali severing diplomatic ties with Ukraine in August 2024. Niger, in a show of solidarity with its neighbor, followed suit, further isolating Ukraine on the African continent. The diplomatic fallout from the Sahel accusations further complicated Ukraine's efforts to garner support from African nations in its struggle against Russia. The accusations, whether true or fabricated, played into existing narratives within Africa about Western hypocrisy and double standards, particularly when it came to issues of sovereignty and territorial integrity. Ukraine's efforts to counter these narratives and repair its image in Africa were hampered by the ongoing conflict with Russia. The war in Ukraine consumed Kiev's diplomatic bandwidth, leaving it with limited resources to engage with African nations on their own terms and address their concerns.